We have a couple of Trump stooges on Bill Maher receiving brutal fact checks that go as far to silence them completely from Bill Maher over their attempt to do some revisionist history and defend Trump on his record in regards to Afghanistan and January 6th. And with these being a common talking point that Trump is trying nowadays, whether it be freeing the patriots who stormed the Capitol or Biden disgraced us in Afghanistan, I thought, why not look at this myself and add some additional debunking?
The Afghan withdrawal, does this compute at all in your worldview?
There's no reason Pompeo should have negotiated with the Taliban alone in Doha.
But it was a conditions-based thing. Biden didn't accept anything else that Trump did, except he was supposedly forced by Trump to do a withdrawal.
It was done badly.
Was totally incompetent, dishonorable, a disgrace. His presidency has not recovered from it since, and our position abroad hasn't recovered from it.
And I think you can draw a direct line from that disastrous, humiliating withdrawal to the reinvasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. I mean, I think what's weakness is what is provocative is the perception of weakness. So what I would love to hear from both candidates is their...
And if I may, 61 Americans were killed when Trump was in office in Afghanistan, 13 under Biden. So there's that.
Mike Pompeo, who was mentioned briefly at the beginning of this clip, was Donald Trump's Secretary of State, and the point being made there, even though he was kind of cut off and talked over, was exactly correct. Donald Trump's administration should not have been negotiating directly with terrorists. They agreed, without the inclusion of the Afghanistan government, to give the Taliban annexed land, to release 5,000 prisoners of theirs, and to bring our troop numbers down gradually before fully withdrawing, while also agreeing to not target attacks against the Taliban, where Trump went on to do just that, despite attacks from the Taliban actually ramping up during all of this in 2020. Trump left only 2,500 troops there with all of our weaponry, all of our equipment, essentially leaving them as sitting ducks, like, oh, well, whatever happens, happens, where yes, Biden had to come in and do something. I mean, it was our weaponry, our equipment there, only 2,500 troops, attacks were ramping up. His options were either to fully withdraw, like agreed upon, or to reinvade and possibly have us stuck there another 20 years. And he made the right choice to get us out of a pointless situation that Republicans got us into in the first place that cost us American troops' lives every single year. As Bill Maher mentioned, far more troops died under Trump in Afghanistan than Biden, solely because Biden went ahead and got us out of there while Trump did not. And another important fact in regard to this is, even if you look numbers by each year, like you solo out every year of Trump's presidency versus the 1 year that Biden, when he withdrew, each year of Trump's presidency saw more troops killed than Biden's withdrawal.
Does Trump bear part of the responsibility for what happened?
Oh, yes. I mean, so the whole premise of talking to the Taliban before you leave Afghanistan, why the heck were we even doing that?
He was going to invite them to Camp David.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans under the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump
to
administration
withdraw.
forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stop the active targeting of the Taliban.
I just wanted to show this clip to provide some clarity about how Kingpin here also understands Trump's responsibility in all this as someone who worked in his administration, despite the fact in the first clip we saw he's trying to carry water for him in that Bill Maher interview, where he literally in this CNN interview lays out exactly what I said and understands the effects it caused, releasing 5,000 Taliban terrorists, negotiating and giving concessions to them, gradually pulling out, leaving troops behind as sitting ducks while preventing active targeting of their regimes. It was a terrible deal and a terrible timeline that Trump put us on that set the table for a lot of the messiness that we saw during the withdrawal. But I stand firm on the fact that Biden finally getting us out of there, finally cleaning up this Republican mess, was absolutely the right thing to do.
The larger issue obviously is January 6th, right? And the problem is with the immunity decision, history is really clear. If you don't hold people accountable when they indulge in political violence, then you get more political violence. And I'm really curious about do you think conservatives will end up supporting a constitutional amendment to overturn the immunity decision if a Democrat is president? I wonder if they will.
I think the way these kind of decisions work, we saw it with the independent counsel statute decision that the Supreme Court has. in Washington, eventually this stuff always comes around and bites the other side. So right now, the Democrats are so upset the Supreme Court has done this. Then if Kamala Harris is elected and some Republican prosecutor somewhere in the middle of red America wants to indict her and prosecute her for some official act, the Supreme Court will say no, and Democrats will suddenly, wait a minute, maybe that decision wasn't so outrageous.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
after all.
what we've seen is this tendency on both ends of the political spectrum to score partisan points at the expense of confidence in our institutions.
Yeah, but Trump really does commit crimes. Let's not
Yeah,
forget
but-
that little part of it.
Bill Maher with the wonderful chime in here. That's what's important to remember in regards to this, and trying to conflate Trump's actions, his actual criminal actions, to, oh, well, a Republican prosecutor could bring nonsense charges against Kamala and then you'll feel the same way, is asinine. I mean, we're talking about legitimate crimes being committed by a former and possible future president, which is different than partisan charges being brought for like a drone strike. What Trump did was not an official act. Enlisting fake electors to steal the votes in states are not an official act. Paying a porn star so her coming out about your affair won't hurt your campaign, and then lying about how you funded it and campaign expenses so it also wouldn't be found out is not an official act. Taking documents from the White House and hiding them from the FBI is not an official act. These are what we call crimes. And if we don't anoint kings in this country, even a sitting president should be able to be held accountable for doing them. It's pretty simple.
If the positions were reversed and a Democrat did this, not only would the Republicans go after him, but they would have done it instead of what the Democrats do. Talk about feckless, General. This is feckless. You had 4 years to bring 4 trials, and we get none of them.
And it's because they were afraid of politicizing it. Look, that's the thing, is that if Democrat did what Donald Trump did, you would be opposing him totally. And by the way, so would I.
Okay, so...
And I think that's the issue.
I'm so extensively on the record about January 6th.
I know you are.
I'm completely appalled by it. But where
But
I
you're still
differ from
endorsing
you
the guy
guys...
You're not so
No, no,
appalled that you
we're-
don't vote. You're not going to
but
vote for
this
Trump.
This is a different bill.
So you're not appalled.
No.
Exactly. Republicans have tried to bring impeachment resolutions against Biden over 10 times. I think closer to like 15 or 20 times. They've tried to impeach him and go after him over every little thing. They've made baseless claims just to open investigations about him, start whole committees to investigate that just later get disproven by the dreaded Hunter Biden laptop that was just going to prove all of their claims, right? If he had done anything near what Trump did leading up to and on January 6th, the Republicans not only would have not hesitated to persecute him, they would be screaming about, see, it's proof that Democrats do try to steal elections, because these are the political points that they would need to score. However, being that it's a Republican that did this, they'll still vote for him. They'll carry water for him. Most of them won't even speak out against it, and yet they'll still pretend to care about election integrity while voting for the only person who tried to steal the election in 2020. Make that make sense, please. And I also agree that the Democrats fall victim to the narratives that Republicans try to spew, where they say it's political and Democrats get scared of it actually being seen that way, so they don't go as far as they should, when in reality, this man is a criminal. He did criminal actions. You should bring down the force of law against him the exact same way you would if he was a civilian.